My son and daughter-in-law burned down my house for the insurance and told the police. She died in the fire, but I wasn't in my bed. I was in the garage, filming everything. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. The smell of kerosene hit me the moment I walked into my kitchen that Tuesday morning. It was faint. Most people wouldn't have noticed it. But I'd spent 30 years as an insurance fraud investigator specializing in arson cases. I knew the smell of every accelerant ever used to burn down a building. Someone had been in my house with kerosene. I stood in my kitchen, coffee mug frozen halfway to my lips, my mind racing through possibilities. A spill, an accident. No, I lived alone. I didn't use kerosene. I had natural gas heat and electric appliances. Someone had brought kerosene into my house deliberately. And I had a pretty good idea who. My name is Elizabeth Morrison, and before I tell you about the night my son tried to burn me alive, you need to understand who I am. I'm 67 years old, a widow living in the 4-bedroom house my husband and I built 40 years ago in the suburbs outside Portland. My husband Robert died 3 years ago from cancer, leaving me the house worth about $900,000 in today's market, and a comfortable retirement. But more importantly, I spent 30 years working as a senior insurance fraud investigator for Pacific States Insurance. I investigated over 500 cases of insurance fraud during my career. Property fraud, staged accidents, arson for profit schemes. I specialized in arson cases. I knew every technique criminals used to burn buildings and make it look accidental. I'd testified in over 100 trials. I'd helped convict dozens of arsonists. I knew how criminals think, how they plan, what mistakes they make. And over the past 2 months, I'd been watching my son David exhibit every warning sign of someone planning insurance fraud. David was my oldest child, 40 years old, married to Nicole for 8 years. They lived 30 miles away in a house they'd purchased at the height of the market and could barely afford. David had always been entrepreneurial. That's the kind word for it. Less kind words would be irresponsible, or perpetually failing. He'd started and failed at 4 businesses in the past decade. A restaurant that closed within 6 months. An online retail venture that never turned a profit. A consulting business with no clients. A cryptocurrency investment scheme that lost everyone's money. He was currently attempting to run a property management company that was hemorrhaging money. Nicole worked as a dental hygienist, but her salary wasn't enough to cover their lifestyle. The big house, the luxury cars they couldn't afford, the vacations they charged to credit cards. They were drowning in debt. I knew this because David had asked me for money repeatedly over the past year. Small amounts at first. Just a loan, Mom. I'll pay you back. Then larger amounts. $20,000 to save the business. $30,000 to avoid foreclosure. I'd said no. Not because I didn't have the money, but because I knew it would be throwing good money after bad. David needed to learn fiscal responsibility, not be bailed out repeatedly by his mother. He hadn't taken it well, and for the past 2 months, his visits to my house had become strange. It started in late June. David and Nicole began visiting more frequently, once or twice a week instead of their usual monthly obligation visit. At first I was pleased. Maybe they genuinely wanted to spend time with me. Maybe David was finally growing up, valuing family over money. Then I noticed what they were actually doing. They were measuring rooms, taking photos of the house, asking detailed questions about the structure. Mom, when was this house built? Is it timber frame or steel frame? What kind of wiring do you have? Original or updated? Where's your electrical panel? Your gas lines? This is a really old house, Mom. Have you had it inspected recently? Old houses can be fire hazards. That last comment made my investigator instincts perk up. Fire hazards. I also noticed Nicole taking photos of my bedroom, of my bed specifically, of the layout where the bed was positioned, which walls had windows, how far it was from the door. Just admiring the decor, Elizabeth, she said when I caught her. You have such good taste, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. David kept pushing the idea that the house was too big for me. Mom, this place is 4 bedrooms. You're here alone. It's too much house for one person. Have you thought about downsizing? I love this house. Your father and I built it. Every room has memories. I'm not selling. But Mom, the property taxes alone must be killing you. And the maintenance. What if something breaks and you can't fix it? I can afford the taxes, and I have a handyman for repairs. David, I'm not selling my house. His jaw tightened. "You're being stubborn. I'm being attached to my home. There's a difference." After they left that day, I found a small notebook they'd forgotten on my coffee table. Inside were measurements of every room in my house, notes about materials, wood floors, good accelerant, and sketches of the floor plan. My blood ran cold. I'd seen notebooks like this before, in evidence files, from arsonists planning their burns. I started investigating my own son. It wasn't hard. I still had access to databases through former colleagues at Pacific States Insurance, and I had 30 years of experience tracking financial motives for fraud. David's financial situation was worse than I'd thought. He was $400,000 in debt. Credit cards maxed out. Business loans defaulting. His property management company was being sued by 3 different clients. His house was in foreclosure. The bank had filed papers 2 months ago. Nicole's car was being repossessed. They'd burned through her 401k. They'd borrowed from her parents, his friends, everyone they could. They were desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. I pulled my homeowner's insurance policy. Property coverage, $1.2 million. The house would be insured for full replacement value if it burned down. And if I died, David was my sole heir. He'd inherit the house, the insurance payout, my savings, everything. But more than that, I noticed something in my policy I'd forgotten about. A life insurance rider I'd added years ago. If I died in a house fire, there was an additional $500,000 payout for accidental death. David would get $1.7 million if I died in a house fire. I sat at my kitchen table, policy papers spread before me, feeling sick. My son was planning to kill me for insurance money. I didn't confront him. Not yet. In my years investigating fraud, I'd learned that suspicious behavior wasn't enough. I needed evidence. Documentation, proof of intent. So I watched. I waited. And I prepared. I installed hidden cameras throughout my house. Small, wireless, high-definition cameras that uploaded footage to cloud storage in real time. I put them in every room, living room, kitchen, dining room, hallways, and in the garage, because I had a feeling that's where I'd need to hide when the time came. I also started sleeping in the guest bedroom instead of my master bedroom. If they were planning to target my bedroom, and Nicole's photos suggested they were, I wanted to be somewhere else. I told no one about my suspicions. Not my daughter Sarah, who lived across the country in Boston. Not my friends, not yet, because I needed to catch David in the act. 2 weeks later, I found the receipt. David and Nicole had come for dinner on a Sunday. After they left, I found it in my kitchen trash can. They'd been careless. A receipt from Home Depot, dated that morning. 5-gallon kerosene container, $45.99. Kerosene, the amateur arsonist's accelerant of choice. Burns hot, spreads fast, creates dramatic fires that consume evidence quickly. I'd investigated dozens of kerosene arsons. I knew exactly how they worked. I took photos of the receipt, uploaded them to my secure cloud storage, and called my former colleague, Detective Sarah Chen. "Sarah, it's Elizabeth Morrison. I need advice on a situation." "Elizabeth, it's been months. What's going on?" "If I suspected someone was planning to commit arson but I didn't have solid proof yet, what would you recommend?" Silence. Then Elizabeth, "Are you in danger?" "Potentially. I can't give you details yet. But if something happens to me, if my house burns down, if I'm hurt, I need you to know I've been documenting everything. I have evidence. Videos, photos, financial records. Who's planning arson? I can't say yet. But Sarah, if my house burns, don't assume it's an accident. Investigate it as arson and attempted murder. Promise me. You're scaring me. Promise me." "I promise. But Elizabeth, if you're in danger, you need to report this now." "I will. When I have enough evidence to make it stick." My investigator instincts are screaming that something's wrong. But I need proof. "Just promise me you'll investigate if something happens." "I promise." 3 days later, David called. "Hey Mom, Nicole and I would love to come over for dinner Thursday night. Are you free?" "Thursday. 2 days away." "Of course. What time?" "How about 6? We'll bring wine." After we hung up, I sat very still, my mind working through scenarios. They were bringing wine. I'd bet anything it would be drugged. In arson-for-profit cases where the perpetrators wanted the victim to die in the fire, they often sedated them first, made sure they'd be unconscious when the fire started, unable to escape. I checked my cameras, made sure they were all functioning and uploading properly. I prepared my garage as a hiding place, cleared out space in my car where I could hide, set up my tablet so I could watch all the camera feeds remotely, and I called Sarah again. Thursday night, if you don't hear from me by midnight, assume the worst. Elizabeth, this is insane. Let me send officers to your house. Not yet. I need evidence. Sarah, I've spent 30 years building cases against criminals. I know what I'm doing. Just trust me. Call me the second anything happens. The second. I will. Thursday arrived with perfect weather, clear skies, no wind, perfect conditions for arson. Fire spreads fastest on calm, dry nights. I spent the day preparing. I disabled the smoke alarms in my bedroom. I didn't want them alerting the fire department before David wanted them to. I wanted him to think he had time to give him space to incriminate himself fully on camera. I put on comfortable clothes, jeans, a t-shirt, sneakers. Nothing that would slow me down if I needed to run. And I waited. David and Nicole arrived at 6 p.m. sharp, both of them carrying bags. Hi, Mom. David hugged me, and I tried not to stiffen. This man was planning to kill me. My son, the baby I'd carried, the child I'd raised. We brought wine. Nicole held up a bottle of red. Your favorite? I'd never told her my favorite wine. She was guessing. We made small talk while I prepared dinner. Lasagna, salad, garlic bread. David and Nicole were nervous. I could tell Nicole kept checking her phone. David kept glancing at his watch. They were on a timeline. Nicole poured the wine. I watched her carefully. She poured from the bottle normally. No suspicious powder, no obvious tampering. The drugs must already be in the wine, or in my glass specifically. She poured mine first from a bottle they'd brought. We ate dinner. I pretended to drink the wine, but I barely let it touch my lips. I poured most of it into my napkin when they weren't looking, into the plant beside the table. I needed them to think I was getting drowsy. Halfway through dinner I started acting tired. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm so exhausted suddenly. David exchanged a glance with Nicole. Maybe you should lie down, Mom. We can clean up. No, I'm fine. Just, maybe one more glass of wine will wake me up. I reached for the bottle. Actually, Mom, you look really tired. Why don't you go to bed? We'll let ourselves out. I yawned dramatically. Maybe you're right, I'm sorry to be a terrible hostess. Don't worry about it. Go rest. I stood up, swaying slightly for effect. Thank you both for coming. It was lovely. I hugged them both, maybe the last time I'd ever hug my son, and headed upstairs. I went to my master bedroom, turned on the light, closed the door, waited 2 minutes. Then I slipped back out, moving silently through the hallway, taking the back stairs down to the garage. I'd left the garage door from the house unlocked. I slipped inside, eased the door closed, and got into my car, a Honda sedan parked in the attached garage. I climbed into the back seat, lay down so I wouldn't be visible through the windows, and pulled out my tablet. All 6 camera feeds appeared on the screen. I could see the entire first floor of my house. David and Nicole were still in the dining room, waiting. I checked the time, 8:47 p.m., and I waited to see if my son would really try to kill me. They waited 30 minutes. I watched on the tablet as they sat in my dining room, David checking his phone every few minutes, Nicole pacing nervously. Finally, David stood up. She should be fully out by now. The pills take about 30 minutes to kick in. Pills? He drugged the wine. Nicole. Are you sure she drank enough? I watched her. She had 2 full glasses. She's unconscious by now. They crept upstairs. I watched the hallway camera as they approached my bedroom door, listened. David eased the door open. I saw him look inside at my bed, which I'd arranged with pillows under the blankets to look like a sleeping person. He closed the door softly. She's out cold. Let's do this fast. They came back downstairs, and David went out to his car. He returned carrying a large container, the 5-gallon kerosene container from the receipt. My heart was hammering so hard I thought they might hear it from the garage. Nicole pulled out a second container from a bag she'd brought, another gallon of kerosene. They'd brought 6 gallons of accelerant. Enough to burn down a house 3 times this size. David started in the living room. I watched on the camera as he poured kerosene over my curtains, my furniture, my carpet, the oriental rug Robert and I had bought on our anniversary trip to Turkey, the couch where we'd watched our children grow up, the bookshelf holding 40 years of memories. He soaked it all in kerosene. Nicole did the kitchen and dining room, pouring accelerant on the wooden table, the cabinets, the floor, and they talked while they worked. The cameras picked up every word. David, make sure you get the base of the stairs. The fire needs to spread to the 2nd floor quickly. Nicole, the bedroom is directly above the kitchen, right? Yeah. Once the fire gets going, it'll shoot straight up. The floor will collapse. She won't survive. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the tablet. He was discussing my death like it was a home improvement project. Nicole, what about the insurance investigation? Won't they be suspicious? David, it's an old house. Electrical fire. Maybe? Or she fell asleep smoking. Your mom doesn't smoke. The investigators don't know that. The body will be too burned to do a full autopsy. They'll rule it accidental death. We inherit the house. The insurance pays out $1.2 million for the structure, plus another $500,000 for her accidental death policy. And we tell the police we left at 9 p.m. She was fine. We had dinner. She went to bed. We went home. Tragic accident. Nicole paused in her pouring. David, this is your mother. Are you sure about this? We're $400,000 in debt. We're losing the house. We're going to lose everything. Mom's 67 years old. She's had a good life. She's lived longer than Dad did. This isn't personal. It's practical. We need this money. It's now or never. I was recording every word, every confession, every cold-blooded calculation. David finished pouring kerosene throughout the first floor, living room, dining room, kitchen, hallway. The fumes must have been overwhelming. Then he pulled out a book of matches. Ready? He looked at Nicole. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. But she nodded. David lit a match and dropped it onto the kerosene-soaked curtains in the living room. The fire erupted with a whoosh that made Nicole scream. Flames raced across the curtains, jumped to the couch, spread across the carpet. In seconds, the entire living room was ablaze. Let's go. David grabbed Nicole's hand and they ran for the front door. I watched them run to their car, get in and drive away. The time was 9:23 p.m. I waited 30 seconds to make sure they were really gone. Then I climbed out of my car and exited the garage through the side door, the one that led to the backyard away from the front of the house where the fire was raging. I pulled out my phone and called 911. 911, what's your emergency? This is Elizabeth Morrison at 4782 Oak Street. My house is on fire. This is arson. My son just said it. I have video evidence of everything. Ma'am? Are you safe? Are you out of the house? I'm outside. Yes. Please send fire department and police immediately. And tell them this is arson and attempted murder. Units are on the way. Stay on the line. I need to call the detective handling this case. Send units to 4782 Oak Street. Send them now. I hung up and called Sarah Chen. Sarah, it's Elizabeth. It's happening. My house is on fire. My son David just said it. I filmed everything. I need you here now. Oh my God. Are you safe? I'm safe. I'm outside. But Sarah, I have video of him pouring accelerant, lighting the fire, discussing killing me. I have everything. I'm 10 minutes away. Don't go anywhere. Fire department is en route. I hung up and stood in my backyard, watching my house burn. The fire was spreading incredibly fast. David had used far too much kerosene. Flames were shooting out of the first floor windows. Smoke was billowing into the sky, visible for miles. My house. The house Robert and I had built, where we'd raised our children, where Robert had died, where I'd lived for 40 years. Going up in flames because my son wanted insurance money. I pulled out my tablet and watched the camera feeds. The fires had destroyed the living room camera, but I could see the flames spreading through the dining room, the kitchen, starting up the stairs. The fire would reach my bedroom soon. If I'd been sleeping there unconscious from the drugged wine, I'd be dead in minutes. David had planned this well. If I'd been a normal mother, a normal victim, I'd be dying right now. But I wasn't normal. I was an insurance fraud investigator who'd spent 3 decades studying exactly this kind of crime. I heard sirens in the distance. Fire trucks, police cars, all responding to my call. My phone rang. David, I answered, curious what he'd say. Mom? Mom, are you okay? I just drove by your house and it's on fire. Are you inside? His acting was good. I had to give him that. He sounded genuinely panicked. I'm fine, David. I'm outside. Silence. Then, what? I'm outside. I wasn't in the house when you burned it down. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm on my way back. Don't bother lying. I filmed everything. The police are here. If you come back, you'll be arrested. Mom, you're confused. The smoke inhalation. I filmed you pouring kerosene throughout my house. Filmed you lighting the fire. Recorded your entire conversation about killing me for the insurance money. I have everything, David. The line went dead. 2 minutes later, he called back. Mom, please. Don't do this. I'm your son. You tried to burn me alive. You're not my son anymore. You're a criminal. I hung up. The fire trucks arrived first, 3 of them with full crews. Firefighters jumped out and started setting up, but it was clear the house was already lost. The first floor was fully engulfed. Flames were shooting through the roof. Is anyone inside? The fire chief asked me. No, just me, and I'm here. It's arson. My son said it about 20 minutes ago. Arson? Ma'am, we'll investigate, but right now, I have video evidence. He poured 6 gallons of kerosene throughout the first floor and lit it. I filmed the entire thing. The fire chief's expression changed. You filmed him? I'm a retired insurance fraud investigator. I suspected he was planning this. I documented everything. Police cars arrived, 4 of them, and then Sarah Chen's unmarked sedan. Sarah jumped out, ran to me. Elizabeth, are you okay? I'm fine physically anyway. Emotionally, I gestured at my burning house. Well, that's my home. You said you have video? I held up my tablet. 6 cameras. Got everything. David and Nicole pouring accelerant. Lighting the fire. Discussing my death and the insurance payout. It's all here. Elizabeth, you're incredible. Most people would have panicked. You documented everything. I've spent 30 years putting arsonists in prison. I wasn't about to let my son get away with it just because he's family. More police arrived. Fire crews were pouring water on the house, but it was a losing battle. David had used too much accelerant. The house would be a total loss. An officer approached. Mrs. Morrison, I'm Officer Jackson. You said your son did this. My son David Morrison and his wife Nicole. They drugged my wine at dinner, waited for me to fall asleep, then poured kerosene throughout the house and lit it. They thought I was unconscious in my bedroom. They wanted me to die in the fire so they could inherit and collect insurance. And you have evidence? Video footage from multiple cameras. Audio recordings of them discussing the murder. I have everything you need for prosecution. Where are they now? I don't know. I called David after the fire started and told him I was alive and had evidence. He might run. You should put out an alert. Sarah was already on her phone. I'm issuing a bolo for David and Nicole Morrison. Attempted murder, arson. Consider them potentially dangerous. 20 minutes later, as firefighters continued battling the blaze, David's car pulled up. I watched as he and Nicole got out. David running toward the house with a perfect expression of horrified shock. Mom! Mom! Oh my God! Are you okay? What happened? He was good. Really good. If I didn't know better, I'd believe he was genuinely terrified for me. Officer Jackson stepped in front of him. Mr. Morrison, yes? That's my mom. Is she okay? Your mother is fine. She wasn't in the house. David's face went through a fascinating series of expressions. Relief. Confusion. Then for just a second, anger. He covered it quickly. Thank God. Mom, what happened? How did the fire start? I walked toward him, Sarah beside me. You know exactly how it started. David, you poured 6 gallons of kerosene throughout the first floor and lit it on fire. At 9:23 p.m., after you drugged my wine at dinner, waited for me to pass out and decided to burn me alive for insurance money. His mouth opened and closed. What? Mom, you're in shock. You're confused. I'm not confused. I filmed everything. Filmed? I held up my tablet. I have 6 cameras in my house. They're motion activated. Upload to cloud storage in real time. I watched you pour the accelerant. Watched you light the fire. Recorded your entire conversation about me dying in the bedroom. About inheriting $1.7 million. Nicole made a small choked sound. David tried to recover. Mom, we weren't even here. We left at 9. We went home. Then explain how my cameras show you pouring kerosene at 9:15 p.m. Explain how they recorded you discussing my death. Explain the receipt in your wallet for 5 gallons of kerosene purchased this morning. Sarah stepped forward. David Morrison. Nicole Morrison. We need to talk. Now. They were separated immediately. Standard procedure. Keep suspects apart so they can't coordinate their stories. Sarah took David to one police car. Another detective took Nicole to a second car. I watched from a distance as Sarah showed David something on her phone. Probably the video footage. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. Nicole was crying. The other detective was talking to her, and I could see Nicole's head shaking, then nodding, then shaking again. Sarah came back to me. Elizabeth, I need you to send me all the video files, right now, before they lawyer up. Already done. Check your email. All 6 camera feeds. Full footage from 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Plus the receipt photo, David's financial records, everything. You're a professional. 30 years of building cases. I know what evidence prosecutors need. The fire chief approached. Mrs. Morrison, we've got the fire contained, but the structure is a total loss. I'm sorry. I looked at my house. The roof had collapsed. The walls were barely standing. Everything inside was destroyed or would be from water damage. 40 years of my life. Gone. Thank you for your efforts, I said. Can you determine cause? Ma'am, I can smell the accelerant from here. This was absolutely arson. We'll do a full investigation, but based on what you've told me and what I'm seeing, this was deliberately set with significant amounts of accelerant. I have video showing my son pouring approximately 6 gallons of kerosene throughout the first floor. The fire chief's eyes widened. 6 gallons? That's excessive. That's someone who wanted to make sure the building burned completely. Someone who wanted to destroy evidence. Or someone who wanted to make sure anyone inside died quickly. He looked at me with new understanding. You were supposed to be inside. Yes, my son drugged me at dinner, expected me to be unconscious in my bedroom. He was trying to kill me for insurance money. I'm very glad you weren't inside, ma'am. An hour later, both David and Nicole were under arrest. David had tried to maintain his innocence until Sarah showed him the video. Then he'd gone silent, asked for a lawyer. Nicole had broken almost immediately. I didn't want to do it, she sobbed to the detective. David said we had no choice. He said we'd lose everything. He said his mother was old. She'd had a good life and we needed the money. He said it would look like an accident. That no one would know. That the insurance would just pay out and we'd be okay. He put the sleeping pills in the wine. I didn't even know about that until tonight. He told me she'd had too much to drink and fallen asleep. When we started pouring the kerosene, I asked if we should check on her. He said no. She was fine. We just needed to burn the house so we could collect the insurance. I didn't know he was planning to kill her. I thought she was out of the house. The detective showed her the video. Nicole watched herself and David discussing Elizabeth dying in the bedroom fire. Oh God, Nicole whispered. Oh God, we were going to kill her. We were really going to kill her. Mrs. Morrison, did you know your mother-in-law was in the house when you set the fire? David said she was asleep. He said the pills would keep her unconscious but she'd wake up and get out when she smelled smoke. But the video shows you discussing her dying in the bedroom. I know. I wasn't thinking. I just wanted the money. We're so far in debt. I was scared and desperate and I went along with it. Are you willing to testify against David Morrison? Nicole looked at the camera footage again, watched herself helping pour accelerant, heard herself discussing the insurance payout. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll testify. Oh God, what did we do? By midnight, David and Nicole were formally charged with attempted first-degree murder, arson, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and attempted poisoning. I was at the police station giving my statement to Sarah and the district attorney who'd been called in. Mrs. Morrison, the DA said, your evidence is extraordinary. We have video, audio, financial motive, physical evidence, everything we need for prosecution. This is an airtight case. Good. Because I want him prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Even though he's your son, especially because he's my son. He knew me, knew I loved him, knew I'd helped him financially his entire life. And he repaid that by trying to burn me alive for insurance money. Family matters in situations like this. Family mattered when he was my son. He stopped being my son when he poured kerosene in my house and lit it on fire with me inside. Now he's just a criminal who happens to share my DNA. Sarah put a hand on my shoulder. Elizabeth, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Don't be. I'm alive. I have evidence. He's going to prison. That's all that matters now. What about your house? I looked at the photos they'd taken of the burned structure. Nothing was salvageable. The house I'd lived in for 40 years was gone. The house can be rebuilt. I'm insured for $1.2 million full replacement value. I'll rebuild something smaller, something easier to maintain. The insurance company won't fight you on the claim. I worked for Pacific States Insurance for 30 years. I know every person in the fraud investigation division. They'll review the evidence and see that I'm the victim, not the perpetrator. The claim will be paid, unlike David, who won't see a penny. He'll be in prison. The DA reviewed my statement. Mrs. Morrison, this might be the most well-documented attempted murder I've ever prosecuted. The video alone is damning. Add the financial motive, the physical evidence, the accomplice testimony. There's no defense. How long will they go to prison? Attempted first-degree murder carries 20 to 40 years. Arson with intent to kill adds more. With everything combined, I'd expect David to get 30 to 35 years minimum. Nicole, if she cooperates and testifies, might get 20 years. Good. That's good. I gave my full statement. 4 hours of detailed testimony about David's visits, the suspicious behavior, the financial motive, my investigation, the cameras, the fire. When I finally finished, it was 4 a.m. Sarah drove me to a hotel. Get some rest. We'll need more testimony tomorrow. But for tonight, just sleep. Thank you. Sarah. Elizabeth. You saved yourself. You're the most competent victim I've ever met. I laughed. Exhausted. 30 years of investigating criminals. I guess it paid off when my own son tried to kill me. In the hotel room, alone for the first time since the fire, I finally broke down. I cried for my house, for the memories destroyed, for the life Robert and I had built that was now ashes. But mostly I cried for my son, for the child he'd been, for the man I'd hoped he'd become, for the relationship that had ended when he lit that match. The trial was 3 months later. The evidence was overwhelming. The video footage showed everything. David and Nicole pouring kerosene, lighting the fire, discussing Elizabeth's death and the insurance payout. David's financial records showed motive: $400,000 in debt, foreclosure, bankruptcy looming. The kerosene receipt showed planning. His internet search history seized from his phone and laptop showed premeditation, how to commit arson, how to make fire look accidental, life insurance payout after accidental death, inheriting from deceased parents. He'd been planning this for months. Nicole testified against him in exchange for a reduced sentence. David told me we had no choice, she said on the stand. He said his mother was stubborn, wouldn't help us, wouldn't give us money. He said the only way to get the money was if she died. He researched everything. How much kerosene to use, where to pour it for maximum damage, how to make it spread to the second floor where her bedroom was. He put sleeping pills in her wine. He said she'd be unconscious when the fire started. She wouldn't feel anything. He said it was merciful, quick, better than watching us lose everything. Nicole broke down crying on the stand. I know that's insane. I know how evil that sounds. But when you're desperate, when you're losing everything, you start justifying terrible things. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want the court to know David planned everything. I went along with it. We're both guilty, but David was the mastermind. The defense tried to argue that David never intended to kill Elizabeth, that he thought the house was empty, that it was insurance fraud, not attempted murder. The prosecutor played the video again and again. David's voice: once the fire reaches the bedroom, she won't survive. The pills will keep her unconscious. She won't even know what's happening. $1.7 million. The house insurance plus her accidental death policy. This isn't personal. It's practical. The jury watched David pour kerosene, watched him light the fire, watched him walk away while his mother's house burned with her supposedly inside. Elizabeth testified, calm, professional, devastating. My son drugged me with sleeping pills, poured 6 gallons of kerosene throughout my house, and set it on fire while believing I was unconscious in my bedroom. His intent was clear: kill me and collect insurance money. The only reason I'm alive is because I suspected his plan and documented it. I wasn't in my bedroom because I'd moved to a different room days earlier. I wasn't unconscious because I pretended to drink the drugged wine. I survived because of 30 years of professional expertise in investigating exactly this kind of crime. Not because David showed any mercy. He showed none. If I'd been a normal mother, a normal victim, I'd be dead. My son would have inherited my house and collected $1.7 million in insurance money, and he would have gotten away with it. The defense attorney tried to cross-examine. Mrs. Morrison, isn't it possible your son thought you were out of the house? Then why did he put sleeping pills in my wine? Maybe he wanted you to sleep soundly while he burned down my house. That makes no sense. And it doesn't explain his recorded conversation about me dying in the bedroom fire. Perhaps you misunderstood. I was an insurance fraud investigator for 30 years. I've investigated over 500 cases of fraud. I've testified in over 100 trials. I know exactly what I heard, and what it means. My son tried to kill me for money. The defense had no rebuttal. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge addressed David directly. Mr. Morrison, you planned to murder your mother, the woman who gave you life, raised you, supported you financially by burning her alive in her own home. You drugged her to make sure she couldn't escape. You used 6 gallons of accelerant to ensure the fire would be catastrophic. Your only miscalculation was underestimating your mother's intelligence and expertise. She suspected your plan, documented everything, and survived because of her professional competence, not because of any hesitation on your part. If Mrs. Morrison had been a less capable person, she'd be dead. You'd be spending her insurance money, and you'd have gotten away with murder. This court sentences you to 30 years in prison for attempted first-degree murder, plus additional concurrent sentences for arson, conspiracy, and fraud. You will serve a minimum of 25 years before being eligible for parole. Nicole Morrison, you participated in this crime willingly. You poured accelerant. You discussed the insurance payout. Your cooperation with prosecutors earns you a reduced sentence of 20 years, with eligibility for parole after 17 years. I hope you both spend every day of your incarceration thinking about what you tried to do. You tried to murder a 67-year-old woman, your mother-in-law, for money. Mrs. Morrison's professional expertise saved her life. Her knowledge of insurance fraud and arson investigation allowed her to gather evidence that will keep both of you in prison for decades. David was led away in handcuffs. He looked back at me once, his expression unreadable. I felt nothing. No grief, no anger, no satisfaction, just emptiness. He'd made his choice. Now he'd live with it. 1 year after the fire, I stood at the construction site where my house had once stood. The insurance company Pacific States, my former employer, had paid the claim in full, $1.2 million for the structure. They'd reviewed the evidence, confirmed I was the victim, and processed the claim within 6 weeks. I was using the money to rebuild, not the same house. I didn't want the same 4-bedroom family home. That was for a different life. A different time. Instead, I was building something smaller. A modern 2-bedroom house with advanced security systems, fireproof materials, sprinklers in every room, cameras everywhere. I'd never feel completely safe again, but I could at least take precautions. My daughter Sarah had flown in from Boston. She stood beside me looking at the construction. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have been here. Should have seen what David was planning. No one saw it coming. He hid it well. But you suspected. Because I'm trained to suspect. 30 years of investigating fraud teaches you to see patterns. David exhibited every warning sign of someone planning insurance fraud. I just didn't want to believe my own son could actually go through with attempted murder. Do you hear from him? He writes letters from prison. I return them unopened. You don't want to know what he says? He can only say 3 things. I'm sorry, which is meaningless. I was desperate, which is an excuse. Or it's your fault, which is manipulation. None of those things matter. He tried to kill me. That's all I need to know. What about Nicole? She writes too. Apologizing, begging for forgiveness. I don't respond. She poured accelerant in my house. She helped plan my murder. Sorry isn't enough. We watched the construction crew work. The foundation was poured. The framing was going up. It's a beautiful design, Sarah said. Smaller but more efficient. I don't need 4 bedrooms anymore. Your father is gone. David is in prison. It's just me now. Not just you. You have me. And the grandkids. I smiled. Yes. I have you. A car pulled up. Sarah Chen, my detective friend. Elizabeth. The house is looking good. Thanks to you. If you hadn't taken my call seriously, if you hadn't responded immediately, this could have gone very differently. You did all the work. The documentation, the evidence gathering. I just made the arrest. I opened it. Photos of the burned house. The video still frames. David's mugshot. Case closed. Perpetrators convicted. Justice served. Thank you, Sarah. Elizabeth, I have a question. Would you be willing to consult with our department, train our fraud investigators? You have such expertise. And this case proves you know how criminals think. You want me to train investigators? We need someone who understands insurance fraud and arson. Someone who can teach officers how to recognize warning signs, how to document evidence, how to build airtight cases. You're perfect. I considered. I was 68 now, officially retired, but retirement had been boring before David tried to kill me. And afterward I'd been restless. Maybe using my expertise to help others was exactly what I needed. Yes, I said, I'll do it. 18 months after David's conviction, I was teaching a class of 20 fraud investigators at the police academy. Insurance fraud and arson often go hand in hand. I told them. Perpetrators see property insurance as easy money. Burn the building, collect the payout. Simple. What they don't realize is that insurance companies and law enforcement have gotten very good at detecting arson. We know what to look for. I pulled up a slide showing burn patterns. Accelerant creates distinctive patterns. Multiple points of origin suggest arson. Intense fast-burning fires indicate accelerant use. But more important than the physical evidence is the behavioral evidence. Warning signs that someone is planning insurance fraud. Another slide. A checklist. Financial distress. Sudden interest in insurance policy details. Questions about fire safety and building structure. Suspicious purchases of flammable materials. Increasing the insurance coverage shortly before a fire. In my case, my son exhibited all of these warning signs. I documented everything. When he finally committed the arson, I had months of evidence showing premeditation. A student raised her hand. Mrs. Morrison, how did you stay calm? How did you not panic when you realized your own son was trying to kill you? Training. 30 years of investigating criminals teaches you to compartmentalize, to focus on gathering evidence rather than emotional reactions. I was terrified. Yes. But I was also determined. I knew if I documented everything, if I gathered enough evidence, he'd go to prison. That focus kept me calm. The emotional breakdown came later. After he was arrested, after the evidence was secured, then I fell apart. But during the crisis, training took over. After class, a young investigator approached me. Mrs. Morrison, my grandmother is being pressured by her nephew to sign over her house. She says something feels wrong, but she can't prove anything. Can you help? Tell her to document everything. Every conversation, every request. If he's pushing her to sign papers, she should have a lawyer review them first. And she should absolutely not sign anything she doesn't fully understand. She's afraid of seeming paranoid. Better to be paranoid and safe than trusting and victimized. Elder financial abuse is epidemic. Family members are often the perpetrators. Your grandmother's instincts are probably right. The investigator thanked me and left. I gathered my materials, thinking about how many people out there were in situations like mine, being pressured by family, being manipulated, being set up for fraud or worse. And I thought about David, sitting in a prison cell, serving year 3 of his 30-year sentence. Did he regret it? Did he understand what he'd done? I didn't know. Didn't care really. He'd made his choice. Tried to burn me alive for money. Failed because he underestimated me. Now he was paying the price. And I was here, alive, teaching others how to protect themselves from people like him. That felt like justice. 2 years after the fire, I moved into my new house. It was beautiful. Modern, efficient, secure. 2 bedrooms, an office, a small garage, everything fireproof. Sprinklers in every room, cameras everywhere. Advanced security system. David had stolen my old home from me. But I'd built something new with the insurance money he tried to collect. The poetic justice wasn't lost on me. My daughter Sarah helped me move in. So did a few friends from my years at Pacific States Insurance. Even Sarah Chen, my detective friend, showed up to help carry boxes. It's a beautiful home, Elizabeth, Sarah said. You should be proud. I am. It's mine. Built with the insurance payout from the fire David set. Every day I live here is a reminder that he failed. That night, alone in my new house for the first time, I poured myself a glass of wine. Not the wine David had drugged. I'd thrown that bottle away. This was a new bottle purchased by me, opened by me, poured by me. I toasted the empty room. To survival, to justice, to starting over, and I toasted Robert, my late husband, wherever he was. We built a beautiful life together, my love. David tried to destroy it, but I rebuilt just like you would have wanted. I slept soundly that night. No nightmares, no fear, just peace. I'm 69 years old now. It's been 2.5 years since my son David tried to burn me alive in my own home. 2.5 years since I filmed everything from my garage and watched him pour kerosene throughout my house. 2.5 years since I survived attempted murder through professional expertise and careful planning. David is serving year 3 of his 30-year sentence. He'll be 70 years old when he gets out. If he gets out. Prison is dangerous. Anything can happen. Nicole is serving year 3 of her 20-year sentence. She might get parole in 14 more years. She writes to me monthly. I return every letter unopened. I have no interest in their apologies, their regrets, their excuses. They tried to kill me for money. That's all I need to know. I teach fraud investigation classes twice a week. I consult with police departments on arson cases. I use my expertise to help others avoid what I went through. And I live in my beautiful new home built with the insurance money David tried to steal. Every morning, I wake up in this house and think I won. David tried to destroy me. He failed. He's in prison. I'm free. He lost everything. I rebuilt everything. That's not just survival. That's victory. Last week I received a letter from the parole board. David was petitioning for early release. After just 3 years, the letter asked for my victim impact statement. Did I support his early release? I laughed. Actually laughed. Then I wrote my response. David Morrison attempted to murder me by setting my house on fire while I was supposedly unconscious from sleeping pills he put in my wine. He poured 6 gallons of kerosene throughout my home and lit it, expecting me to burn alive so he could inherit my property and collect $1.7 million in insurance money. He planned this for months. He researched arson techniques. He studied my routine. He calculated the insurance payout. The only reason I'm alive is because I suspected his plan and documented everything. I hid in my garage and filmed him committing the crime. I have video of him pouring accelerant and lighting the fire. I have audio of him discussing my death. If I'd been a less capable person, I'd be dead. David was sentenced to 30 years. He's served 3 years for attempting to murder his mother. Seems insufficient. I oppose his parole. He should serve his full sentence. He made a choice to value money over my life. He should face the full consequences of that choice. I have moved on with my life. I rebuilt my home with the insurance money he tried to steal. I teach fraud investigation to help others avoid what I experienced. But David's early release would be a miscarriage of justice. I request that his parole be denied. The parole board denied his petition unanimously. He'll be eligible to apply again in 5 years. Maybe then, maybe not. That's not my concern anymore. This morning I stood in my backyard and looked at where my old house used to be. You can't see any signs of the fire now. The land has healed. New grass grows where ashes used to be. My new house stands in almost the same footprint as the old one, but it's completely different. Modern where the old house was traditional. Efficient where the old house was spacious. Secure where the old house was open. It's a new chapter. A new life. Built on the ashes of what David tried to destroy. I thought about him sometimes. Wondered if he'd changed. If prison had taught him anything. If he felt genuine remorse. But mostly I didn't think about him at all. He'd tried to take everything from me. My life, my home, my security. Instead he'd taken only the house. A structure, wood and brick and memories. Everything else, my life, my strength, my resilience remained. I'm Elizabeth Morrison. I'm 69 years old. I'm a retired insurance fraud investigator with 30 years of experience. My son burned down my house for the insurance money and told the police I died in the fire. But I wasn't in my bed. I was in the garage filming everything. He's in prison for 30 years. I'm here in my new home, teaching others how to protect themselves from criminals like him. He thought I was an easy target. A vulnerable elderly woman. Someone who'd be sleeping soundly when he poured the kerosene and lit the match. He forgot or never knew that I'm an expert in exactly the crime he tried to commit. That was his fatal mistake. I didn't just survive. I documented everything. I built the case that put him in prison. And now I live in a house built with the insurance money he tried to steal. Every day I'm here is a victory. Every day he's there is justice. That's not revenge. That's accountability. And I'm perfectly at peace with it. My son tried to burn me alive. I filmed everything, and I won.